Okay, so we were talking about peristalsis and how it moves from the stomach into the small intestine as it continues throughout the body. Peristalsis is the action of movement of the muscles down, moving the food down through the tube as we digest it. So we can move this along through the duodenum or the duodenum, push the chyme down for about 2 hours as it goes through those areas. Nice and slow, steady contractions and movements. And as it does, we're constantly absorbing nutrients. It rolls it, it spins it, it pushes it down. As it gets through, we're absorbing it. If it gets to the bottom of the small intestine without absorbing the nutrients, those nutrients are lost to us. So we have to absorb them as fast and as the best that we possibly can. When the food goes down to the stomach, it causes the gastroiliac reflex. This relaxes the valve between the small intestine and the large intestine, and the small intestine will dump its contents then into the large intestine. If the ileocecal valve, which this is called, sticks, then everything backs up and you get constipated. If it's completely open, it sticks open, then you get diarrhea at the same time. So this is peristalsis again, just a movement, the wave-like movements of contraction of that food, that bolus of food through the small intestine. The digestion, absorption is taking place all the time it's going through these phases. So a little bit about carbohydrate digestion. What's a carbohydrate? Give me an example of a carbohydrate. Bread, right? What else? Pop? What'd you say? Pasta? Yeah. Pizza? Yep. All those things are carbs, right? How much carbs should we have? Less than 50 carbs a day? Yeah. So that 50 pieces of bread a day?
No, 50 grams.
50 grams. What's a gram? How big is a gram?
I don't know. I just know that for me, I try not to go over 5 grams of sugar, of carbohydrates, and ingredients at a time.
It's tough to know because, first of all, we don't usually measure in grams, right? We measure in teaspoons, tablespoons, or pounds or ounces. We don't usually go in grams. But, so we really don't know how much that is. The best thing is to limit it to just the minimal that you need. Foods are going to have carbohydrates in them. If you're going to eat a vegetable, if you're going to eat a fruit, those have carbohydrates in them. You can't avoid completely eating carbohydrates. But you can avoid things that have refined sugars in, like breads and pizza and pastas and things like this. If you eliminate those, you're going to cut back your carbohydrate ingestion and you're not going to have as much problem with weight. Some people do the white diet. You don't eat anything with white in it, and that's a pretty good diet. You can eat most anything else that you want, but you just don't eat things that are white, like white flour, milk, white sugar, those types of things, right? And it works pretty well for some people. So 50% of the dietary starch is digested before it reaches the small intestine. So when you start eating that piece of bread, the amylase in your saliva starts to break it down. By the time you get it down into the gut, this already started to break up. So we have these enzymes that go in and they work with this. If it has an OSE on the end of it, it is an enzyme. So maltose, sucrose, lactose, fructose, all are enzymes that will help us to digest the foods. Now, lactose is the one that digests the lactase. Lactose dissolves the milk sugars that we have in our bodies. So lactose is indigestible after age 4. So we don't have the lactase that dissolves the lactose. So most all of us are lactose intolerant or lactose sensitive. There's only 2 groups of people they found genetically that can actually digest the lactose after they've been weaned, after they've grown up. One in Africa and one in North Europe. There's only two groups of people that they have problems with that. So if you come from that heritage, you may not have problems with milk. If you don't, you may have some problems with milk. And the way they found this out was they found these groups, these tribes, that they raised cows specifically for many, many, many years prior to this. For thousands of years ago, they raised milk and they drank it, and they became more tolerant to it. But for most of us, we are lactose sensitive. So if you have problems after you eat ice cream, stomach ache, burping, belching, all that out the other end too, that can be a problem. Some people get it to the point where they are completely diarrhea and throwing up and all that stuff because of it, right? Proteins. pH, we take about protein, we take a pH of 1.5 to 3.5 to break down proteins. We need to do this to bring it down into our amino acids. Also then we have some pancreatic enzymes in the small intestine that break things down. So between the stomach and the small intestine, we break down our proteins into usable amino acids. How much protein should you eat a day? Or a meal? Let's try for a meal. That might be a little better.
8 ounces.
About 8 ounces? How big is 8 ounces? About the size of a deck of cards is all we need. That's all we need.
Say 4 to 6.
That's probably about closer to it. 8 ounces is a half a pound. That probably would do you for a whole day. But we have to have proteins, whether it comes in as beans, meat,